Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Okay, well, welcome back. And at this time, we go around the room, introduce ourselves. My name is Risha.
I'm Jack.
I'm Roy.
I'm Ray.
Michael.
I'm Brad.
I'm Shantan.
I'm Tom.
David.
Clint.
My name is Jerry.
My name is Mark.
Don.
Mike. My name is Michael.
Go ahead.
Michael.
Jason.
Diane.
Jack.
Brian.
Jonathan.
I'm Hal.
I'm John.
I'm David.
George.
I'm Prasadachitta. Oh, you're...
Now it's time to hear from Prasadachitta Dharmachari as an ordained member of the Triratna Buddhist Community. Prasadachitta teaches meditation, yoga, and Buddhism at the San Francisco Buddhist Center. His practice and teaching grows out of a valuing of friendship and community. He is interested in the link between ideal qualities such as love and clarity as inspiring guides, and those same qualities as they manifest imperfectly in everyday relationships. So, thank you.
Thank you. We all here? Sorry.
So,
Yeah. I hear one person. It's okay because I'm going to actually move that podium over here. Hi. Sometimes I like to speak from my meditation position, but I'm actually going to use this corkboard a little bit. It's funny, it's as much for me as it is for you. I put something down so I keep on track. Put on my formal attire. Hi.
Hi.
Good morning. I'm going to talk today about themes, spiritual themes, Buddhist practice themes. One of the things that I like to do in my introduction to Buddhism classes is tease out of people some sense that there is a natural ideal. By natural, I mean an ideal that they can get in touch with that isn't imposed upon them. That is something that if they just ask themselves perhaps the right questions or get quiet long enough, they'll just get in touch with. Yeah. And this probably won't surprise you, but I'm always successful if I just ask people the kinds of questions like, what qualities in yourself and others do you really value? And then I write them on a board. It's always the same, generally speaking. What qualities would you aspire to in yourself? That kind of thing. This isn't to say that everybody is good, and you get a particular kind of person that comes to a beginning introduction to Buddhism class, so that's fair enough. But it always does warm my heart to go out into the world thinking that even if somebody isn't in touch with that natural ideal, that it is what would make them happy. They may not know it, but there's something, and I might not totally know it either, but there's something that, some sphere of quality that would make them happy. And I don't really need to know what it is, but generally speaking, I find it quite helpful to have that orientation towards the world. I don't know what's good for you. You may not know what's good for you. But there is some direction, some sphere of goodness that is good for us. And I would like to cultivate it. And even if I don't think you're cultivating it, I think it would be something that would make you happy, something that would please you, something that would satisfy you in a way that's sustained. So, in a way, like, coming to a Buddhist group, you might think, oh, this goes without saying, but I like to say it. Because you're not a beginner's Buddhism class, but I mean, it's something that I like to remember, so I'm standing here remembering that there's a natural ideal, something that doesn't need to be imposed upon us, something that if we look for, we will be inspired by. Even if we don't fully know it, we'll have inklings of it. It will be of the nature of compassion, peace, clarity, energy, goodwill. I mean, we could go on. Equanimity. It would not be summed up by any one word, because it would be something that is not monotonous. It is not something that could be put into a single, person. It would be something that would be responsive to every possible situation. Who knows? Anyway, these are the kinds of things that I find inspiring. My natural ideal is those things, and I can only hope that any talk that I give will help us feel like, or be inspired to, look for our natural ideal. So I can only sit here and make the aspiration to be in touch with whatever degree I can to a natural ideal as I talk to you, to hopefully diminish whatever anxiety I have about public speaking, not out of suppression, but out of inspiration, staying in touch with my heart. So any inkling of a natural ideal is going to produce a theme, right? We're going to think, my natural ideal is about equanimity. So then you have a notion, a theme. I'm going to cultivate equanimity today. Could be compassion, could be energy, could be creativity. Whatever it is, it's going to produce a theme, some kind of sign, some kind of symbol, some kind of orientation. Maybe it's a Buddhist shrine, maybe it's not a word, maybe it's a symbol or a flower or an archetypal figure. Maybe if you're not Buddhist, it's Jesus, who knows, but you're going to have some kind of theme. And you're going to pursue that theme in some way or other. And then you may forget your theme. But this is what I mean by theme, right? So spiritual themes come up. We have them if we're a spiritual seeker. And often we can have the sense that, this is it. I just need to do this. I just need to have this theme. I just need to stick to this thing. I just need to meditate every morning, or whatever it is. We'll take up themes. And then themes will sort of play out in such a way that we have overplayed them, right? We don't know. I've been doing this theme, so I've been meditating for so long, and as a theme, it's not really helping me, maybe. I don't know. That might happen. You might consider a particular way of being. Your theme might be just staying calm, sort of letting go of whatever anxiety you have. And that works for you for a while. And then, for some reason or other, it doesn't seem to be working anymore, maybe. And I think this is the message that I want to bring out tonight, this morning. I usually talk in the evening, sorry. is this notion that we need to be lucid to our themes, constantly open and sensitive to potential new themes arising. And I want to bring this out as a general principle, the general principle of being open to and aware of the themes that we pursue in life for happiness. Because, they may not be something you call a spiritual theme. It could be making more money, having more security, having a nicer house. There's lots of themes to have in life that help us pursue happiness. And we want to be aware and lucid of those themes and, willing to challenge them. So not just challenge the sort of worldly themes, but also challenge our spiritual themes. And as a general principle, this is partly why I'm a Buddhist. I feel like the Buddha was constantly creating a constructive framework for us to take up themes, challenge those themes, and also find other counterbalancing and progressively augmenting themes. So there are many themes. We have lots of lists of themes in Buddhism. We have the Four Noble Truths. The first theme is there is suffering. This is a theme. We can take it up. We can look into it. The second theme is that our difficulty, our stress, all the things that cause us anxiety and difficulty in life arise because of a particular set of circumstances. And that those circumstances are not constant. They change. They have a ground on which they are held up. All of our suffering is like that. That's the second theme, that suffering has a condition that is not constant. Suffering arises in dependence upon conditions. This is the second theme. And the third theme is that if we pay attention, those conditions are not constant, and that if we pay attention enough, we can see that there's breaks in it. We aren't constantly suffering, but there is a way that suffering ceases. And of course, the fourth theme is another list of themes, right? The perfection of view, the perfection of effort, the perfection of emotion, the perfection of action, so on and so forth. So it's another list of themes that we can take up. Each one of those themes augmenting and helping the other theme. So we can, because we tend to have a one-track mind, we can take up certain themes. And we can't always have all the possible themes, right livelihood, for example, or the perfection of emotion. The perfection of meditation, the perfection of mindfulness. I can't necessarily list off all the 8. I may already have. But there's a lot of themes in Buddhism. Ethics, meditation, and wisdom. Those are 3 themes that we can take up in our lives. So I'm actually going to... that's just an introduction, actually, to what I'm going to talk about. There's a particular traditional text which I got a long time ago off Access to Insight, which is a website of traditional texts, mostly put up by a bhikkhu or a monk named Tansaru. And he has this one that he put up, and it's called Themes. That's the title, Themes. And he actually called it Themes. It has another traditional title, but he thought it was a more appropriate title. And I have it written here in this book of texts that text and poetry and various things I find inspiring. So I'm going to read it to you. I meant to mark it. There it is. So, a practitioner intent on heightened mind. And in here I'm going to say that heightened mind is our natural ideal, which I referenced. Should attend periodically to 3 themes. He should attend periodically to the theme of concentration. He should attend periodically to the theme of uplifted energy. He should attend periodically to the theme of equanimity. If the practitioner intent on heightened mind were to attend solely to the theme of concentration, it is possible that his mind would tend to laziness. If he were to attend solely to the theme of uplifted energy, it is possible that his mind would tend to restlessness. If he were to attend solely to the theme of equanimity, it is possible that his mind would not be rightly concentrated for the ending of mental contamination, to the bringing about of heightened mind. That's my, in brackets, commentary. But when he attends periodically to the theme of concentration, attends periodically to the theme of uplifted energy, attends periodically to the theme of equanimity, his mind is pliant, malleable, luminous, not brittle. So it's that simple. I have found this incredibly helpful. And this isn't the only way to see things, but if you see that this is an application of a general principle of being aware of various things as themes and their downfalls, and other themes that solve that downfall's problem, so to speak. So I'll just talk a little bit about these themes in my practice. The theme of concentration. So sometimes concentration can come in a lot of forms, but in meditation, concentration is just focusing your attention on your breath. Whatever thoughts come up, you just you may not push them away, but you direct your attention back towards a particular sensation or feeling or whatever, and that's your practice. That's your concentration practice. You're taking the intentionality of your attention, your capacity to attend, into your hands and wielding it. Yeah? Coming back again and again, cultivating a concentration. Now, I know from experience that this can lend towards a kind of, not just laziness, but sloth. You're basically cutting out all of the inspirational things in your life, so to speak. You're basically just corralling your attention. So not only, as the Buddha says, is it possible, I have found it to be true for me that I get tired. And sometimes I can actually keep a certain amount of energy. I can meditate for long periods of time and not fall asleep. But also, when I'm done, I can just be kind of like, wow, I don't feel very inspired and energized. I've just been sitting here all day long. I feel calm, sort of. But it doesn't necessarily, it's not an infallible theme, right? So there's this other theme of uplifted energy. So for me, uplifted energy is, it's thinking about the fact that people like you come together and care for each other. That there is this goodwill that people have for each other and this desire to be happy. And that I can actually feel in my body a kind of vibrating sense of wanting others to be happy. This can happen for me. I can do this. This is a theme. I can get excited about it. I can think, well, what can I do in the world to help other people realize their own goodwill? And just, be more comfortable in the world, right? Uplifted energy. These are thoughts, and I can turn to them. And they change my experience of meditation, and they help concentration. And also, I can get a little agitated about it. I can actually, sometimes I can't corral any of that energy. And also, it leads me to confusion. Well, what can I do? I don't know. How can I help people? I don't know. What do I have that can help other people? Anyway, it's not an infallible theme. But it helps. The two themes are helpful. So there's this next theme, equanimity. And equanimity is different than concentration. And this is not equanimity like in the perfection of equanimity. This is equanimity as a theme. There's a difference. So in the perfection of equanimity, we may have heard that it's not cold indifference to the world. It's, it's a kind of responsive creativity that the Buddha has. He has this beautiful, bright, aware equanimity. But this is equanimity as a theme for those of us who may not have achieved that or even have regular access to it. But this equanimity is more like just an attentive opening us to whatever is drawing your attention, right? It's like, rather than concentrating your mind, it's opening up. Okay, so what is drawing my attention? Just sitting still and being with whatever it is that tends to take you away from what you think you want to do. So it's a kind of initial equanimity where you're just sitting with an openness to what's happening, whether it's outside or inside, just letting it be, just letting it be. And this is a really valuable practice, to just open up to what's happening. Sometimes our spiritual practice is so focused and excited that we're actually not paying attention to a lot of what's actually affecting us. You know, that happens. So equanimity is really helpful because we can start to come into contact with things in our lives that we just weren't paying attention to in a way that, is non-responsive to them, but aware, right? And equanimity doesn't necessarily happen when the person who's making you angry is in your presence, but sometime later you can realize that, you are still harboring that anger and that resentment, and it's okay, and you can sit with that and be aware of it and let it arise in a different kind of space. Now, it's not an infallible theme because you might just never really come to a kind of helpful resolution with all that stuff. You might just constantly be aware of it, but not really make good use of what you're aware of. Allowing a kind of kindness. Maybe talk to a friend about it in a way that's helpful. Whatever. So this might be a hard thing to talk about, but you can see how equanimity in that way might not be an infallible theme. Constantly, basically not being aware of things and trying to just not react to them. So, together, and this is where I'll write on the board, the Buddha is saying that if we keep coming to these themes, some kind of qualities will come together that he calls heightened mind, or a mind which is pliable, malleable, luminous, not brittle, not subject to breaking down. I think most of us know what breaking down means. So I'm just going to draw this diagram that I like. It goes like this. Concentration. Uplifted. Energy. Equanimity. Up here is a heightened mind. Did I spell that right? Heightened. I know when I spell things wrong. H-E-I-G-H?
Yes.
Heightened mind. I could just reference my book, but I like to talk to you guys. Heightened mind, and then I like this little diagram here, and it goes like this, and it represents balanced practice. So I have this drawn in my book. It's a little better in my book than here, but hopefully you can see it. And so we're lifted up. These things are more than the sum of their parts. Something new emerges out of these things. Something perhaps that right now we can't fathom or we can't fully conceptualize. And I would say that the best things in life cannot be fully conceptualized. So, how are we for time? Good. When do we usually end?
11:50 is
Right. Okay. So I'm going to say a few more things. If you're the kind of person, so if you're the kind of person who's just inspired by having traditional reference for these things, I'll give another traditional reference. There is a particular discourse attributed to the Buddha where he goes to help this practitioner who's in the woods, and he's heard that this particular practitioner, whose name is Sona, is having a really hard time. And he's actually kind of freaking out the other monks because his feet are bleeding. He's been trying so hard. Apparently his feet have been bleeding. Everybody's like, whoa, that guy's just kind of freaking me out because he's trying so hard and he's really been he's doing walking meditation. I will emphasize also that walking meditation is one of the themes that I think in general we overemphasize in modern contemporary Buddhism is meditation as a sitting practice. I think that traditionally the emphasis wasn't quite as strong as our contemporary situation puts on it. So actually this is a 2,000-year-old example of this guy's doing walking contemplation. He's just pacing back and forth. And that was a common practice in the Buddha's day, and it is also a common practice in a lot of traditions today, to not sit, but to actually walk back and forth, to pace. I do it a lot myself. I do it at least as much of that as meditation when I'm on retreat. So this monk, Sona, is walking back and forth, and his feet are bleeding, and the Buddha comes to him and talks to him. And apparently this guy used to be like a lute player for the king before he kind of decided to go forth and start practicing spiritual practices. And so the Buddha approaches him with a simile from that. I think a lute, is it all right? A lute has strings. So he says to Sona, and I'm not quoting it exactly, so what happens, Sona, when your lute strings are too tight when you're trying to play music? Well, Sona says, it sounds bad, and your strings break. And he says, well, what happens when your lute strings are too loose? And he said, no sound comes out of them. And he says, so in the same way, Sona, over-aroused persistence leads to restlessness. Overly slack persistence leads to laziness. Thus, you should determine the right pitch for your persistence. Attune your pitch to your faculties. And there, pick up your theme. So this is a whole other place where this general principle comes out. And the Buddha was not strict in the way he looked at his practitioners. He was always looking for the themes that would lift them a little higher, that would help them out a little more. Yeah, so when the Buddha was dying, he said, with attentiveness, strive on. The attentiveness that we need to apply isn't about something outside of our experience. It isn't about something, it can help to be inspired by something that is the Buddha's realization. But that attentiveness needs to be about who we are, what our faculties are right now, what's happening for us, what themes can we take up now. The themes that we take up are ones we already know, and together those themes can come together and result in something new. So that is the attentiveness that the Buddha is asking us to take up. We are looking to cultivate something new, but it's going to be made up of or come out of the positive themes that we have now that represent what is our natural ideal now. Yeah? So some things in our lives already represent your natural ideal, are already themes, and we need to attend to them, cultivate them, water them, give them sun, and all the rest. And we will have heightened mind, and we will know it for ourselves. So that's it. That's my talk. Thank you. This is where we have time for discussion. Any thoughts on this? Do you have some themes that work for you? Some themes that balance?
Thank you for your talk.
Yes.
So what resonates for me is that I find myself, maybe I might be too much in a concentration mode or whatever. And from what you're saying, if we do a little bit of everything, if we don't get too on one path or one theme, then these other themes can kind of offset them or rebalance them, so to speak.
It is possible. I think
Or that's what I think.
that's what I think that's what I'm saying. But also, the Buddha, in his own way, always qualified everything. He just said it is possible, meaning we need to be aware that this is a possibility. So it's possible. Concentration is totally doing it for you right now, and in no way is it causing you difficulty. But it's important to be attentive and know that there might be other things that possibly could help more at any given time, and it is also possible that it's actually not helping you. It is possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if this exactly relates to specifically what you're saying, but I was at the Gay Film Festival, and one of the most interesting movies there was a guy that was interviewing older gay men at length about their experiences as coming out gay men before Stonewall. And they went on for quite some time. There were 4 or 5 speakers, that were interviewed. And I came away from that thinking, gee, these guys had a lot to say. And I thought, I think I could be interviewed for 4 or 5 hours about my experience. In fact, probably everybody in this theater could be interviewed for 4 or 5 hours about their experiences. And it really comes down to, in my view, somebody sitting down and taking the time to ask those questions. And to have you be sensitive to your own experience. And, we probably all have that seed of great spirituality in ourselves. And it's really what you're saying, it's just to look and discover it.
Yeah.
And you could write your own movie about yourself.
Yeah.
You could write your own biography about yourself. We all have the potential of being great.
And you're pointing out that it could be helpful to have somebody sit down with us and curiously tease it out of us, like those interviews do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prasadachitta. Your talk put me in mind. In my mind, what came up about themes was intention and how where your intention arises from directs your action, and then your action reinforces whatever that intention was, and that becomes your theme, which is kind of what you're saying here. I remember when I first encountered Buddhism and I saw that there was an Eightfold Path, and each of them was a right, right speech, right everything. And then I thought, you mean you're not going to tell me what right is? And that's, that's part of it. You have to find out for yourself where that right action is in line with your intentions and your theme. And it's always going within to find out what that is.
Yeah. And then doing it and finding out more.
Action.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's really interesting now that I see it all laid out. Just recently I've been asking myself, what's blocking me? What's blocking my pursuing a theme, as you would put it. What's blocking my energy or my enthusiasm around something or my concentration. And I guess I was sort of approaching it as there's something that's, in the way. But looking at this, now I realize it might just be a matter of balance. Like I might be too focused in one area, on one thing versus maybe it's not about getting something out of the way. Maybe it's about shifting attention and energy, or equalizing it, or balancing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to share that. So this is helpful in helping me think about it from a different angle.
Yeah. I found that with regards to, because I've enthusiastically taken up a number of practices over the years, right? And sometimes I take them up not really, just because something says so, and I do it. And sometimes that's even better than, because you don't have a notion of what you're trying to get through. You're just like, oh, do this thing.
It's just exploration.
Yeah, it kind of breaks things up because you're not, there's less expectation. So sometimes themes can just be kind of vague, but you're like, oh, I've read this great teacher said to do this thing, and you just start doing it for a while. Anyway.
Because the Buddha said, try these things for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great way to approach it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your talk, you started with this concept of ideals, kind of natural ideal,
Yeah.
out of which themes or a theme can rise. I'm a little unclear about what you mean by that. Could you speak to that more?
Yeah. So, in a sense, whatever arises out of the question, what is ideal? Is going to be a theme. So that's simply put, it's like, I think we have the natural faculty of asking that question. Just by virtue of being a conscious being, it can kind of all of a sudden kind of go, well, what else is this about? What's important? So out of that question comes a theme. So that's really, it's kind of that simple, if you see what I'm getting at. But in addition to that, so that's the simple dynamic, that when you ask that question, some theme comes out. In addition to that, I am saying that my general take from being with other beings and myself is that there is a sphere of qualities and ways of being that, generally speaking, tend to happiness. And that, generally speaking, if you ask people the question, what is ideal, it points that way. It's hard to talk more specifically about it than that, other than to say it tends to be things like camaraderie, goodwill, love, compassion, clarity, energy. Does that make sense? So I'm not trying to say anything concrete about this notion of a natural ideal being some kind of absolute, but that experientially we can affirm that there is this sphere of qualities that do and are happiness. Is that helpful?
Just a point of clarification. The way you described equanimity sounded very much to me like vipassana, like shamatha and vipassana. As opposed to concentration, that just being present to anything that arises. So is there a distinction? Because I think of equanimity in all these lists. It seems like equanimity is kind of the ultimate fruit of practice.
Sure. I think, and I'm just going to, I don't know scholarly speaking, but I think that from just my use of lexicon personally, my use of words, I would say that when I say equanimity as a theme, very much so it would relate to the theme of insight. That would make sense. Whereas concentration as a theme would be samatha. And in fact, that's the word being used. Yeah. So it makes sense. And it's interesting when you look at traditional texts, because I don't think it's airtight. There is no airtight way of understanding what all the words are. It's really very contextual. So equanimity in one instance can mean a quality of the awakened mind, and in another instance it could mean something more like being open to the insight. That's my take, yeah.
Would you look at this as like a three-legged stool? So you have your three themes: concentration, equanimity, and uplift energy. And each leg of the stool is one of those. And if you're doing too much of concentration, you're going to kind of fall over, or if you're not doing enough, the leg's too short, so it keeps you out of balance.
Yeah, I would say that it is possible.
Yes. How about for the simple man?
I think that that is a good working theme. Yeah. I found it helpful to see it that way. Yeah.
Oftentimes in hearing these kind of perspectives on practice and Buddhism, Buddhist thought, I feel like it very much becomes this internalized aspect of you have to do it all on your own. And to some degree, I feel like there's also a need to call out the collective aspect of it as well, that oftentimes we do fail in these. Yes. And we do need others to come in and help us find ways to cultivate what we need to go back to, or what needs to be.
So this arrow could include receptivity to others, or communal practice. Right. For certain. That's why it's not I agree, it's not an airtight theme. Even these three together and their balanced practice is not an airtight theme, but I really appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah. And in a way, I associate equanimity with that receptivity. Because these two would be kind of very personal based, like concentration, uplifted energy, and then at some point just kind of, it's like Sona, he turns to the Buddha, that's his community, and the Buddha comes and helps him out.
Right.
Yeah.
And the community helps us with our uplifted energy.
Yeah, right, so there's a lot of overlap. Yeah, it's not, yeah. Thank you. Well, that's a good place to end. Thank you.
All right, so any announcements? We'll hear from our host.
I'm the host today. There's some refreshments out there, and if you'd like tea, there's hot water. When you're finished with your cup, put it in the sink, and I'll take care of that for you. I'll bring down the Dana Bowl. Suggested donation is $10. Dana is the Pali word for giving. It pays for speakers, rent, or dinner at Erkin Street, all sorts of things. We do the newsletter for prisoners and other people. We send those out. 12:30 at the front door. People gather to go to lunch. If you'd like, please go there at 12:30. There is a sign-up list if you'd like to be on our list.
I was just going to ask Prasadachitta if you could leave that up on the board, maybe take a picture of it or something.
Yes, I will leave that up.
Thank you.
In fact, if you want, I'll leave my sketchbook open to the page where I drew it, and it includes the text.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
So next week, I believe, we have another discussion.
That's right.
Is that right? Yeah, and I'll be good because I'll be leading that. Now, and I just want to share in advance that what we'll be talking about is giving and generosity, and in that context of that theme, we'll get to know each other as we break into small groups to discuss. And I'd like it if we could share the up to three things in our lifetime where we have practiced giving, or we've done things on behalf of others in service of others that we feel had the greatest positive impact, or that we drew the most satisfaction So, sometimes we're a little reluctant to share our greatest accomplishments or something, but I think it would be a great way for us to hear from each other about some things that matter most in our lives, and we'll get to know each other a lot better through that.
Great.
So there are flyers out on the table there for our annual retreat, which is coming up at the very end of September, the 30th through October 2nd at Vajrapani Institute. Jerry, do you have any update on registration?
We're up to about 22. We have usually room for about 34. Cabins and private rooms, right now I have a waiting list going.
And our theme this year is spiritual friends on the Eightfold Path, and David Lewis is joining us to guide us in that exploration. If you have any questions, feel free to ask either myself or Jerry. Thanks.
Anyone else? The books, do you want?
Free books.
Free books, Queer Dharma on the table if you like a copy.
I just want to say also there is still room in the dormitory, and if you want to camp, you can.
Okay. All right, I think that might be all the announcements, all the things to talk about together from there.
Dedication of merit. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.